Welcome to the Explainer. Okay, let's talk about power. It's a word we throw around all the time, right? But what if I told you that the most powerful forces shaping our world are the ones we can't even see? Today we're going to peel back the layers and find out how power really works. So let's just start right there. When you hear that word power, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Maybe a politician winning a big vote, or a CEO making a major decision. Yeah, those are definitely examples of power, but as we're about to find out, that's really just scratching the surface. The real game is often played in the shadows.
All right, so first up, we have the kind of power that we all get, the stuff that happens right out in the open. Political scientists call this the first phase of power, and you can think of it as a straight-up, head-to-head battle.
A political scientist named Robert Dahl came up with this really simple, intuitive definition. It's basically, actor A makes actor B do something that actor B really didn't want to do. Simple as that. It's a clear conflict you can see with your own two eyes, like a good old-fashioned tug-of-war.
This is power playing out on a public stage. You know, both sides state their case, they go at it over some issue, and in the end, somebody wins and somebody loses. It's direct, it's pretty easy to measure, and it's what most of us picture when we think about power. But, and this is a big but, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
But what if the real power isn't winning the fight? What if it's deciding which fights are even allowed to happen in the first place? And that brings us to the second, much sneakier face of power.
Okay, so this is where things get really fascinating. A couple of thinkers, Bochrek and Baratz, came along and said, whoa, hold on, Dahl's model is missing a huge piece of the puzzle. They argued that maybe the truest power isn't about winning the debate, but about making sure a debate that could hurt you never even starts.
This is the power of what they called non-decision making. It's the ability to act like a bouncer for public debate. You get to keep the really threatening, uncomfortable topics from ever getting on the agenda. You squash them before they blow up into real issues. This way, the people with power can make sure the conversation stays focused on, well, on things that are pretty safe for them.
And check out this case study. It's a perfect example. Back in the day, you had two industrial cities with just terrible air pollution. In East Chicago, there were a bunch of different companies, and they tackled the pollution problem back in 1949. But in Gary, Indiana, the whole city's economy was basically run by one company, U.S. Steel. And guess what? The company didn't have to openly fight against regulations. Their sheer influence was enough to keep the pollution issue off the political agenda for an extra 13 years. That silence, that inaction, that was power.
So we've got the open fight and the hidden fight. But now we're going to peel back one final layer to what political scientist Stephen Lukes called the most radical and kind of insidious form of power there is, the invisible fight.
This, right here, is the ultimate power move. It's not about winning a fight or setting the agenda. It's about shaping how people think, what they desire, and what they believe is even possible. It's so effective, it can lead people to willingly buy into a system that might actually be working against their own best interests.
This quote just nails it. The third phase of power works by defining the common sense of a society. It creates the assumptions that we argue with, but we never, ever think to argue about. It basically sets the boundaries of our own imagination.
And the result is wild. People might not complain or protest, not because they're afraid, but because they genuinely can't imagine an alternative. They've internalized the values of the powerful so deeply that the way things are feels like the only way things could ever possibly be.
So you might be wondering, what does this invisible power actually look like today? Well, the crazy thing is, it's often hiding in plain sight, disguised as some neutral-sounding procedure or just an everyday phrase. Let's look at two really clear examples.
So, take cost-benefit analysis. It sounds so logical, so objective, doesn't it? But think about it. It can be a perfect tool for this third phase of power. Why? Because it forces every debate into a box where only dollars and cents matter. And suddenly, all the things we value that you can't put a price on, like clean air, a stable climate, or just being healthy, they get sidelined. The whole game is framed in a way that rigs the outcome from the very start.
Or get this one, the life of a simple phrase, sound science. It's incredible how a phrase can be weaponized. Back in the 80s and 90s, tobacco companies pumped tons of money into promoting sound science to create doubt about the link between smoking and cancer. Now, fast forward to 2002, a leaked memo shows a political strategist telling politicians to use that exact same phrase to create uncertainty around climate change. See? It's not really about the science. It's about using language to shape belief and ultimately to delay action.
Okay, so we've journeyed from the totally visible to the completely invisible. The big question now is, how do we get better at actually spotting these hidden kinds of power in our own lives?
Well, here's your toolkit. You can literally start training yourself to see all three faces of power just by asking a few critical questions. Anytime you're looking at a situation, at work, in your community, in the news, just pause and ask yourself, who do the current rules benefit most? What are the accepted truths that nobody ever seems to question? And maybe the most important one, what isn't being talked about at all? This is how you start to see what's really going on.
So we've gone from the power to win an open fight, to the power to keep a fight from ever happening, all the way to the most profound power of all, the ability to shape our thoughts and desires without us even knowing it. And that leaves us with one last, pretty intense question to think about. Is the most effective form of power the one you never even knew was being used on you?